And if I just share my screen, I will take you to our presentation for today. I'm going to start off by just sort of a few brief points about our data warehouse. My name is Sophie Lingfield, for those who aren't familiar with me, and I am the data scientist for Local London. So we'll start off with a few key points for anyone who perhaps hasn't used our data warehouse at all. It is a fantastic tool that we really hope that you will all enjoy using, and it should benefit your work going through the future. So what is the Local London Data Warehouse? It was designed a few years ago, and the aim of the data warehouse was as a one-stop shop. It will help you sort of build a picture of a sub-region as a whole, and it provides a really wide variety of data sets. The hope is that there will be something there for everyone, no matter if you work on sort of a variety of different projects, or if you have perhaps more of a niche. For example, if you're more interested in education data, there will be specific sections within the dashboard for you, which I will show you in a few minutes. Each visual in the dashboard is interactive, and the aim behind that is that it will give you quite a customized view. So if you're only interested in certain areas or certain particular topics, you will be able to gain what you need from there. It's designed to be easy to navigate, hopefully, and relatively intuitive, but there is some support on our website for that. And there is also an email to contact us if you have any issues, which of course you can do at any time. Another thing to note about the data warehouse is it's not a solid project. So the version you see today might not be the version that you see in a few months' time. You might be wondering why that is. It's an evolving project. This isn't just something that we want to launch and leave there. For many of you that work with data, you'll know that well, the picture changes very rapidly. And the hope behind the data warehouse is that we can work both internally and with you to make sure that it's up to date all the time, that it always covers any evolving topics that you might be working on, and that the data is always up to date. So if you do see either today or looking at it in the future, anything that you think I've missed or anything that you think would benefit the sub-region to have a better picture of, please do contact us and let us know. When should you use the data warehouse? Now, I've got some ideas on the screen, but realistically, the answer is any time that you like. Any time that you feel you don't perhaps have a very clear picture of the sub-region relating to a certain topic, any time that you're perhaps in a meeting and thinking, okay, I've seen some figures, I would like to see how those compare to some other figures that I've seen. Hopefully you should be able to pull up the data warehouse very quickly and relate to some relevant figures. It's also a multi-use tool, so any of our visuals that you use or see in the tool, if you feel that they're perhaps relevant to some work that you're working on, you are able to use those visuals for your own work, for your own reports, provided you do reference them. And ideally they'll be able to give you a brief knowledge base. Now, there isn't always an incredible level of detail to every data set, because the aim behind it is that it is nice and broad. And rather than have lots of detail about every topic, we've tried to make sure that there is a very broad range for everyone to use. The most important part of this, how do I access the data warehouse? The data warehouse is very clearly marked on our website under one of our headings, but we also have a quick link if you are trying to get there as quick as you can. Our quick link is actually local.london/data. You type that into your web browser and we get straight into the dashboard. Now, if I am able to change my screen share, I will bring that up to you just now. Apologies, I have to stop sharing to change over. Okay, hopefully you're all able to see this. If not, someone will tell me, but I will assume everyone is able to see this. This is our data warehouse. So as you can see, there is a nice introduction to it on our page, letting you know what it was written for, saying a lot of what I've just said to you today. And to start off, I'm going to highlight here that we do have a user guide. So if anything that I tell you today you've perhaps forgotten or you're struggling a little bit, please do visit our user guide, which hopefully you can all see. It should open in your browser nice and easy. And it gives you lots of the tips that I will be going through in a few minutes. Most importantly, bring it up in full screen mode, otherwise it can be very tiny, particularly if you're on a mobile device or an iPad or something like that. Navigation through the dashboard I will be talking you through very shortly, yeah, if you ever need a refresher for how to get through it, highly recommend having a peek through our user guide. So now we move on to the data warehouse itself, and as you can see, I'll bring it up in full screen here. Are you still able to see this? I think so. Yes, no one has complained, so I'm going to assume we can. And as I mentioned before, the data warehouse, it has been around, it has been out there for a good few months. But with our lovely addition of Bromley to local London, we've given it a little bit of a refresh, a little bit of a rebrand, and a lovely little welcome on our homepage. So this is the front page that you'll always be brought to when you're using the data warehouse. And as you can see, we've split the data sets into a series of different topics that we hope will be relatively logical and help you find what you need fairly quickly. If I take you to one of our example pages, so you select, once you select your topic of interest, let's go into, for example, skills and education, because I know it's a very key topic for lots of you here. This is sort of our library page for the skills and education. And you can see that we have a number of different data sets on offer, and they will each have a different presentation style. You can also have information about the source itself here. Sources are very important, and more information about when this was released and when it will be updated. So then once you've decided what particular area you are interested in, for example, MVQ levels that have been attained, you click through to view that page. Once it loads up, you should see a very nice bright visualization of the data that you have selected. And as you can see, there is quite a lot on the page. It can first be, you know, quite a bit of information, but the aim is that hopefully everything that you are wanting to see should be here. This particular data set, you can see, has been taken from the ONS Annual Population Survey estimates. And as we can see down the side, we have a lot of choice in terms of year. We've tried to do that for every data set because obviously these data and these figures are not static. It's very important for us to know how our region is evolving over time. So if I were, for example, to take you back to 2012, you can see that our MVQ levels, if we look at MVQ 4+, the amount of people that have obtained an MVQ 4+ has gone up significantly in the past 9 to 10 years, which is good to see. Also, I just want to bring your attention up to the top here. So at the top of every page, underneath where it tells you where your source is, there is some more information about the source. Of course, if you just want a brief overview of figures, then just look at the figures and they should be enough for you. But if you're ever using these figures in reports or to back up anything, please do click through. There will be a link on every page that takes you to the relevant source to make sure that there are no issues there that might give you a slightly different picture than you are expecting. So once we've got to a page and we've had a look at whatever data we might like to look at, we might decide that perhaps we need some alternate data to support wherever we're looking at. So in that case, we can always press up in the right hand corner. It will take us back to the previous page, which in this case was the library of different skills and education data sets. And as you can see, there are several different options in this page, all of which will give you a different representation. One thing additionally to note about this particular page is that we have included all of our boroughs as well as figures for local London, comparing that to London and also comparing that to the country. We've tried to include that on every page where possible because of course all data is relative. Having a figure by itself is lovely, but it's really important to kind of look at that wider in comparison, and it's that comparison that we really wanted to have at the core of this data warehouse. So if I bring you back now to the Skills and Education page, to return to the original homepage, if you perhaps wanted to look at a different topic, always press the Local London logo. The Local London logo on any page will bring you back to the home where you started. So if you ever do get a little bit lost in the data rabbit hole, this will always bring you back to where you want to be. To take you through to a slightly different presentation style now, as I said, every data set has a slightly different presentation. So I'll bring you now to the population by sex and age, and this particular data set has two sources. So again, keep an eye on your sources. I know there are different preferences in terms of sources for different data sets, so that is really key. As you can see on this page, we have a few notes. So for example, the note that residents have been grouped together over 90 years of age. A lot of these are just simple restrictions that come with the data sets that we use, because every single data set within the data warehouse is a public data set. Everything is publicly accessible data. It's all out there for you to use and perhaps do a deeper analysis if that's what you're looking for on perhaps a more niche area. So to explain how this particular page works, again, we have our year selections down the side. We're currently on 2023. I cannot believe we're in 2023. So as you can see at the bottom, highlighted in yellow is Local London, because these figures are showing us the overall figures for Local London. But should you want to select a different area, for example, if you work only with Bromley, we can select Bromley, and you have your figures specifically for Bromley here, as well as a breakdown by gender as well over here. You can also look comparing, for example, London. If we look at the whole of London, we can look at that distribution compared to Local London, which again can be quite interesting to have our comparison. Again, if you would want to change your source, you would just be able to jump straight over, as it says here, to the ONS mid-year estimates, which it should do. No, it doesn't want to do it. It's always the way, isn't it? That will work. It does work. It's just there's a slight delay today for some reason. You can also, as you see here, have an age selection. So I will shrink this down just to show you. If you were perhaps only interested in, let's say, the 30 to 50 age category, we could select these values here, and then that gives you a slightly different representation, and all the figures on the page will update to select to reflect whatever it is that you have selected. We have some other quite interesting graphics on the data warehouse, so I'll take you back instead to have a little look at a different page. One of our newest additions to the data warehouse on this particular update is some data from the main spoken language. This is, where's that gone? Okay, it appears there might be a slight issue with that link. I will get that link fixed, and hopefully that will be live by the end of today. I really apologise for that. I'll take you to a different page instead in that case, and I will show you a fantastic map that we do have. So the Indices of Deprivation is a fantastic data set for those who don't know it. Covers a wide range of different topics as well as just an overall representation of the level of deprivation and comparing different boroughs, different regions to each other. The reason why I wanted to highlight this page to you is that in our dataset section along the top, we have our link, as always, to the dataset itself and the metadata, but we also have an additional note. So if you're not quite sure how this dataset works, if you select the link there, it gives you a pop-up and it gives you a little bit more information about this dataset because it's slightly more complicated, and it just adds some context for you on how these figures came about. So as you can see, we have a lovely map here, and these particular figures show the deprivation score overall across London. We've decided to just show you London for this particular example because it gives us a slightly more realistic and localised picture. If you decide you only want to look at local London, we have a tick box in the top here. There we go. That shows you all of local London relative to each other. So as we can see, our boroughs that are indicated as more deprived based on this dataset are marked more clearly over here. And if you want to see the figures in more detail, we've included that in a table. That should be nice and clear. And there are also, for this particular dataset, there are several iterations. So if we wanted to, for example, look more deeper into the indices of deprivation, we could click through to the education and skills section, where we have again the same representation. It should be nice and clear and logical for you to follow, and it gives you the exact same layout and table, just with the figures for the education deprivation scores. As you can see there are sometimes slight delays with the visuals popping up because it is such a large resource, but give it a few seconds and it does always appear in the end. If we return now to demographics and community, and there are a few other data sets that I would just like to highlight to you, and mostly just to give you a clearer idea of all the different types of visualizations that we do have. So if I jump into the community, jobs and employment, we also have lots of different topics for you here. For example, self-employed, employment by age and gender. There's also sort of a breakdown of part-time and full-time workers, which obviously became particularly of interest during COVID. If I come through now and show you the combined benefit claimants, this again, a very interesting data set that became quite relevant, especially during the COVID period. To give you an example of how you might use something like this, we could select a time period. So, for example, if you wanted to know about COVID recovery, this might be something you are very interested in. So we could move our date slider along the top right here. Let's move it to perhaps the start of 2020, about there. And you will see that it's currently selected Barking and Dagenham, and it will give you an entire trend of the combined benefit claimant count data since early 2020. Lovely to see that curve coming back down. Along the bottom, as always, there is your selection of area. This will always be along the bottom in the same format to make it easier to navigate, although for some presentations all boroughs will be shown at once. So for example, if we wanted to look at just London, just local London data here, you can see that we have local London in red, Barking and Dagenham in green, and we can hover over the graph to get some additional data. So if you want some clearer figures, for example, from July 2021, if we were to hover, we see a pop-up of the data there, which tells us those exact figures, if that's something that you're more interested in. I've had queries before about whether or not the actual underlying data from the data warehouse can be downloaded. For example, if you wanted to take this into Excel to do some of your own analysis. Unfortunately, because of the platform that we use, that isn't currently possible. Having said that, if I take you back to our homepage, we have a contact us button, and we have our email here. So if you do ever find that there is a particular data set that you're really interested in, you'd like to know more about, and you're not perhaps getting to grips with what's been published on the web, I'm more than happy to help you out with that at any time. One final data set that I want to bring to your attention today is another one of our nice new data sets within our green economy and transport section. So again, as you can see, we have lots of different data sets here. Each data set, once published, does take sometimes a couple of months to be added onto the data set because I have limited capacity, but everything will be updated as soon as it's available and as soon as we are able to push that out. But obviously, well, we are very much limited by when the data is published. So you will see for some data sets, perhaps the most recent figures are from 2021 or 22. That's simply because the more recent data hasn't yet come into the public, but hopefully would be added quite soon. I want to show you the commute methods data because this has come directly from the census. Now, There we go. This is one of our newest pages, and it's got slightly updated dynamic where we have two different presentations on the same page. So as you can see here, we've got two different charts. One is showing us the percentage of residents within your selected commute methods. So for example, I've selected here those who drive, take a motorcycle or a taxi. We might perhaps instead want to know people who commute by bicycle and on foot, and perhaps by a different method, and it would give you those percentages, and again you can hover over the chart to get the entire figures as a percentage there. And to the right of it we have again the same data but with a slightly different presentation. So if you would want to see perhaps just for local London the commute methods, we can see that the majority of residents within local London actually work mainly at or from home. If we wanted more data about that figure, we can hover over the chart and we can see that's nearly 430,000, a significant number of our residents. Again, perhaps if you are working on a project that perhaps covers multiple boroughs, if you press Control, you can select multiple boroughs. For example, Barking and Dagenham, we might select Greenwich and Redbridge. And again, we can see the same presentation, but those figures for those boroughs. So perhaps we might be interested in just underground usage. We can hover over and see the exact figure there. It's 49,560. If I bring us back to the home page now, hopefully that has taken you on a brief tour of all of the sections. For those who are familiar with DFE scores indicators, which we use to support our initial LSIP work, that is also available here. These are indicated much more clearly and simplistically to follow the initial layout of that project. But if you are interested in any of those, they are available on here. Which is particularly of interest to those who are perhaps more involved in the LSIP project. So I won't go through with all of those with you today, but they are particularly interesting to look at if that is your area of focus. I would also just like to add a note to say this was developed with support from the University of East London. They have been particularly helpful in the development of this as a second pair of eyes, and in terms of sort of techniques and overseeing the development for quite some time. So I would like to say a quick thank you to them. I think actually that gives us a very rough overview. I'm aware that that's been quite quick, but I don't want to bore you with details that perhaps you won't ingest if we go on for too long, and I don't want you all to be sick of my voice by the time I'm finished talking today. So if I pause the stream for now, I'm happy to accept any questions, perhaps have a bit of a discussion about anything that I might have missed, or anything that you are perhaps wondering about going forwards. As I said, this is a very evolutionary project. It's not static, and I do want to make sure that this is shaped as we go forward around you and around your needs. So I will stop the stream there, open the floor up to any questions, and perhaps I will leave the recording running, but we may or may not keep these in. So I will turn to the floor for any questions. Let me see if I can't actually see the questions. Helen, are you around and able to assist me? I can't see hands up.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, thank you, Sarah.
Had a question about downloading. I think you might have already answered this, but just to be sure, whether it's possible for colleagues to download the data and embed it in their own organisations' platforms.
So in terms of, the data warehouse is accessed via a link. So obviously if you want to include the link and instructions to a specific page, you're very welcome to. In terms of actually downloading the underlying data sets, the data warehouse was produced in Power BI. And because of the restrictions behind that, we're not allowed to have that be downloaded by external members. Having said that, you're more than welcome to contact me via the email address on the website, and I can either provide you with the data sets underlying or give you some advice about how to perhaps work with that in the way that you need to.
That's great. There's another question that's come in from Simone, who I know very well, from City of London Corporation, to say thank you, and asked what data visualization tool do you use to produce the dashboards?
Ah, yes, I'm very glad you asked, because I did mean to open with that. See, that's nerves, Simone. The data warehouse has been entirely developed within Power BI. There has been a small amount of just initial manipulation of the data, but everything that you have seen has been done entirely in Power BI, which is a fantastic tool. For those not familiar with it, who have a bit of a data mind, I highly recommend. It's something you try and get involved with.
That's great. So I suppose just one question for me, or maybe it's just something to prompt you to say a little bit more about, is MC and Lightcast.
Yes.
As something, obviously not everybody across London can access this, but maybe you just want to speak about that for any of our local London boroughs.
Fantastic. So some of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware. At Local London, we pay for a data tool which was previously called MC and has now been renamed to Lightcast. I always say both names because you never know which one people are familiar with. And MC is a fantastic data tool that we have. Because of the number of licenses we have, there is one license allocated to every borough, and we do have a small amount of flexibility within that. So if you aren't, if you're in a borough and wondering perhaps who's got that access, let me know. We can ask around and I can point you in the right direction. MC is a fantastic data tool that gives you more up-to-date insights on actually a very wide range of topics. In particular, it's got some fantastic analysis regarding jobs and job postings. There are a few pages in the data dashboard that rely on MC data. So particularly during the COVID period, that's what we were basing a lot of our analysis on. But MC data is able to drill down quite far into things like job postings, when there are highs and lows in demand. MC is able to sort of highlight where particular clusters are, if there are particular industry clusters in your area, as well as show you trends over time. And you're also able to go into MC and have an explore if you have a license, and you can actually create reports within MC that will be exported as well. If you are an MC license user, I will be contacting you quite shortly to have a chat with you. And if you're not an MC license user and you would like to be, please contact me, and we can include you in the discussion going forwards about how we as a sub-region might want to rely on that tool a little bit more. Thank you, Sarah, for reminding me to discuss that.
No worries. I don't see any other hands up, so either put something in the chat or put your hand up. There's lots of people saying thank you, by the way. One from Helen and also from Trudy, and also from me, because I think you were fantastic. Thank you. So just seeing if there's anybody else. Oh yeah, sorry, Helen did ask, yes, a thank you and a question, and she asked, are there any more updates or additions planned in the next sort of 3 to 6 months maybe?
Most definitely. So a lot of the data sets that we rely on, are going to be published within the next few months. So there will be quite a few updates simply in terms of the new year of data, which particularly coming out of the year 2021 and 22 should be quite interesting to see how those have evolved. There is also obviously a lot of census data that is quite recently released or still to be released in some cases, and we're looking a lot into including a lot of that because the census data is incredibly unique. Particularly, we're aware that there's a lot of demand for things like adult education data within the sub-region, so that will be a particular area of focus within the next couple of months. So we would like to focus on that. But if there's anything else that you perhaps haven't seen, or you're going to hopefully have a play later and you feel is missing, please do let us know. It's very much we want to be responsive about what you need, what comes up in your working groups, and what might support our ongoing work.
As if on cue, Caroline has asked whether it's possible to include some data on health inequality and disability obviously we're working on Integration Hub. Jonathan and Caroline are doing a lot of work on ability, not disability, supporting employers, etc. So that we're just wondering whether that is already in, or could that be included in due course?
Yes, there is some NHS data on the horizon in terms of what's going to be added. Disability is always quite a tricky area to give data on, because obviously you have issues with, you know, diagnosis versus self-identifying, etc. So it's quite a tricky area to navigate, but in terms of us including it, it's definitely on the horizon for the next sort of couple of months. And something else that we sort of are hoping we can include in the plan is a clearer timeline of what is expected to be released and when, and perhaps sort of a what's new button as well, so that if you go on, you can see perhaps the latest editions. If there's anything that catches your eye, you might be able to go on and see that.
Brilliant. Another question from the lovely Max, who's now at Newham, is just saying that she thinks many of her colleagues in Newham would be interested in this, and if it's possible to set up a session for a range of colleagues, not just in Newham, but other boroughs who might want to kind of bring in more colleagues across departments to use and understand the power of this tool.
Most definitely. I think that's a fantastic idea, Max. A lot of the belief behind this is that lots of people want to be more data savvy. They just sort of don't know how. And the entire idea behind the data tool is to kind of, for it to be that first step, for people to get, you know, comfortable with using a certain level of data, and hopefully it kind of becomes part of their natural thought process when they're looking at something or reading something that they want to go and check. So I would be more than happy to set up something or have a chat with you. If you send me an email after this, perhaps, and we can have a chat about setting something up, or even something a bit more personalised if you feel you have a team or some colleagues who are working on a particular niche area. Again, we could have a chat about that and how I can support you there. Fantastic.
Right. She's already said she will be in touch. So
brilliant.
That's fantastic. That's already an action. I don't have any other questions in the chat. People can still put their hands up.
And I am aware this has been a shorter session than the allocated hour. That was partially intentional to make sure there weren't any very large burning questions that made us overrun, and also partially so you'd get a little bit of time back and possibly feel more positive about data because it got you to have an extra cup of tea. So I hope that's been all right for everybody.
Absolutely. Well done, Sophie. You've done a fantastic job. Applause from me. There's been lots of applauses in the chat and on the screen. I don't know if you can see them. So well done and thank you. Another chat there from Jonathan. Sorry, chat applause. From Steph.
Thank you, and I'm sorry you've all had to endure my voice talking for such a long time. I hope I didn't go too quickly for you. But as I said, I am always here, always just an email away. If anyone has any queries, even if you sort of forget the things I've said, because we all know that as soon as you leave the meeting, all of these things leave your brain. Please do send me an email. I'm always more than happy to help.
Well done. Thank you, Sophie. And indeed, just to echo that, do go play with it. It's a really intuitive tool. It's really easy to navigate, but it's fascinating. Every time I go into it, I learn new things. So thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you all very much and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie.
Bye.
Thanks, Sophie. Well done.
Bye.